Well, hello. Thanks for joining me today as we talk about discovering Lyon and Provence with Viking. I'm Carol Shaddix with Imagine Going There Travel. We are your Viking cruise experts, and we're here to walk you through every day of this wonderful itinerary. I'm going to turn my camera off so you can see these images as we go through the map to start with. This is part of the France's Finest Cruise, which is a 15-day journey from Paris to Avignon or the reverse. These are the two 8-day cruises, Paris in the heart of Normandy, combined with a high-speed train, and then to Lyon and Provence. And today's seminar is just going to talk about the lower portion where we go from Avignon to Lyon or the reverse, and you can do a pre-extension in Paris, have some wonderful days visiting there, then Viking will take you by high-speed train to start your cruise. Now, here's an overview of our itinerary, and I like to say this is a great itinerary for those that want to slow down a little bit, because we do have an included shore excursion every port of call, and we do some wonderful journeys into the countryside on this itinerary, and it is just a great option for those that want to enjoy food and wine. If you're a seasoned cruiser, a lot of times I'll have people ask me, what other rivers are there to enjoy? And I talk about Lyon and Provence. And so lots of art, lots of history here, great food and wine. Maybe it's better for those with mobility issues, a little bit of a slower pace. This is my daughter, Meredith. And when she graduated from her master's program in Barcelona, we celebrated with a trip, and she really enjoyed it. In fact, she just got back from the romantic Danube and said there's things about Lyon and Provence that she just thought were especially memorable. So wanted to share that tip with you. It's a great family trip, a great mother-daughter trip. And of course, those that like food and wine, you cannot beat the great food, especially in Lyon. So we're talking about going this direction, Paris, and then connecting in a high-speed train to Lyon if you're doing the extensions. So much to see here. And with Viking, when you do the extensions, everything is included. Your luggage is taken care of. You're picked up at the airport, taken to the hotel. Your daily breakfast is included, a city tour, a service as a Viking host, and of course your transfers to the cruise. And that's the wonderful advantage of having extensions with Viking. And then we're going to actually, after you have a chance to visit Paris, you're going to start your day in going this direction as we did in Lyon. And Lyon was just a beautiful city. When we arrived, we had a wonderful guide that gave us a get acquainted tour. She was very careful not to spoil the actual included excursion for the next day, but she gave us some cute tips. Like when we crossed the road, she said, we have a lot of laws in France, but we don't obey any of them. And so in order to make sure you get across the street safely, she suggested that you give the driver a frown and a beady-eyed look as you cross. And then when you get to the other side, you can give a little smile once you are on the sidewalk after you cross the street. So it was very fun spending a little time in the city. I loved all the sycamore trees that were there. It was such a restful area to walk around in because of all the shade. We were there in July, right after a heat wave that thankfully broke while we were there, but enjoyed this city so much. That afternoon, we toured the city, then we came back to the ship, had a great dinner of coq au vin, and that was a special menu on item that evening. And then I ended up doing some work back in my room. My daughter, Meredith, rented a bicycle and toured the city and said it was just a lovely flat area to explore, and really enjoyed that, getting that wonderful start of getting acquainted with Lyon on our first day there. And the next morning, we got an early start for a panoramic tour. It was another beautiful day, just like this you're seeing in the photo. And we got in a motor coach tour to the top of the hill. What you're seeing there is the beautiful Basilica. It's got some incredible views of Lyon from here, and you're able to overlook the city, see this beautiful cathedral, really young by European standards, 150 years old, thereabout. Only took 26 years to build, which is almost microwave fast for Europe. And it was a beautiful day of just having an opportunity to learn some history, look over the town from this perspective, and learning a lot about the city of Lyon itself. Now, Lyon does span two rivers, the Rhône and the Saône rivers. We were on the Rhône for our cruise, and lots to see here. As we were going down the mountain, our guide was just telling us so many interesting things. There are over 150 murals in Lyon, and he gave us information about each character on these murals. There are the Michelin chef Paul Bocuse has 3 Michelin star restaurants there. There are over 22 in Lyon, and just enjoyed learning all about the famous people, Louis Pasteur, et cetera, who were born in Lyon or made a large contribution to the history of the city. Then we got to the center of town, and our guide stopped in front of this door, and you can see these little markers here. If you're going by yourself, make sure you read those. But he started talking about the history of Lyon, how it was built back in the 4th century, and this town is built with all horizontal streets. So they created something called Traboules, and that's what his hand is on that door. And when he pushed it open, you could see that we were going down this hallway to a passage where basically the houses, living quarters, were looking down into this protected area. And he said that the reason they built these Traboules was because those who were making the silk needed shortcuts to get down to the water to get their silk onto the merchant ships. And so these were built to create those shortcuts and protect the fabric. But later it was used by the French resistance for secret meetings. And so just lots of history here. As we were walking through, we got this amazing smell, and it came about that we came out onto the street over here on this side street and literally followed our noses to this incredible bakery. It's a special praline brioche that is absolutely delicious and very elegant. As you can see, the chandelier here, we had some samples, and of course had to buy something because it was just amazing. My daughter and I literally ate this on the way home. It was so good. So definitely give you the suggestion to do that. It's a very walkable city, very fun to explore. And I really enjoyed our day in Lyon. Fun shopping as well. Our next day, we ended up going to the Beaujolais wine district. And so this is a fun area that has a lot of wine vineyards, just incredible countryside. As you can see here, we ended up learning so much about the history, as our guide was telling us that the French love the roundabouts. There are 60,000 in France, the most in the world, but they were just decorated well. And of course, the flowers were blooming, and it was in the summertime, so that was so fun. We would see sunflowers and the beautiful mountainside as we drove. And they took us to this welcome center, which we were there July 4th, which was so much fun. We had our guide said that there are 3 buildings in every village: a church, a castle, and a bakery. And they had wonderful croissants for us, and orange juice and coffee. And then we were there on July 4th. The mayor was there, welcomed us, and just celebrated our joining their little village. And we got a chance to wander around and do some exploring before we headed to the actual region where the chateau was, and that's where our tour basically continued. The Beaujolais wine region is a region of different towns. As you can see from this map, there are 1,500 wine growers in this region. It takes 2,500 people to pick the grapes, and they start in the first week of September. They have to be all hand-picked. They fill these baskets that they carry on their backs up to 88 pounds before they dump them in this 300-gallon vat to process. And it is a lot of work. And we learned so much about that further once we got to the chateau, which felt like we were stepping back in time to Pride and Prejudice period. This beautiful mansion, you can incidentally rent it out for weddings. It's booked several years in advance, but at the time that we asked, I think it was like 5,000 euros for the weekend. I thought that would be a lovely place to get married. And we went out into the back. The guide actually talked to us about how each of these little hills has a different composition in the soil, and that affects how the grapes taste. They are 12 different varieties in this region. 95% of it's red. The hard granite makes the grapes really have to stretch to actually produce the fruit. They're not allowed to irrigate them according to the rules, I guess, the authenticity of the brand. It has to be all done a certain way. So the guide said the more the wine, the vines suffer, the better the wine. And then they took us into these converted stables, as you can see here. And then we went down into the cellars and learned all about how they actually create the wine. So these casks hold 5,000 bottles of wine in each one. They actually build the casks inside the cave because they are too big, of course, to go in the doorways. Each wine grower feels there is a secret to his wine, whether it's playing Beethoven music or you see this fungus on the top of the ceiling there. They used to clean it off, and they said it actually created some flavor to the wine that gave it a unique taste. So we learned so much about it. Then we went to these more modern vats where we sampled a bunch of different wines. Our guide told us how the properties of each one, but then just basically said, don't buy a wine based on price, buy it based on what you like. That is the sign of a good wine. And so after we were finished there, we had some sailing time that we learned a little bit from our second captain about the ship navigation. He showed us how he could actually pilot this 2,400-ton ship with his right hand, showed us a little video about how it worked. This wheelhouse here is raised and lowered to accommodate high or low water issues. And those that wanted to do a tour of the wheelhouse were able to do so, which we did. And you can see here how the Viking deli is parked right there by the dock. And so we decided to get off and explore after we arrived later that afternoon. Again, trees everywhere, just shops with flowers sitting outside. This was basically their Black Friday sale period. So lots of great deals if you like to go and do some souvenir shopping. That evening we had a taste of Provence, which is everyone comes out fully decked out to help the captain, the hotel manager, our program director here, and just so much fun and just happy to do whatever they could to help you really enjoy the flavors of France. Meredith loved macarons, so they brought her a whole bowl full of them, which was really fun and sweet. At the end of the day, we had a cake for honoring our 4th of July celebration. They sang going around the dining room. It was very, very fun. Then the next morning, we actually got to tour the city officially, and this was a really interesting day. This is the oldest and most well-preserved piece of original Roman road left. It's from the 1st century. You can actually see the impression of the road as you are walking on it. The road has Roman mile markers every mile and a half. She said that Julius Caesar granted the residents Roman privileges, including the privilege of paying taxes. She was such a great guide. I loved her excellence. She had such a command of all the details, brought items like this that would help you see what it was like back in the day as they were actually building these roads. And then you're walking by and seeing all this history. Roman wall right outside an office building, for instance, and it was just incredible. There's the postman delivering the mail as we were learning all about the city. She said that in the Middle Ages, there's a cathedral there that's like 300 years old. And she said in the Middle Ages, there were 2 rules: don't starve and pray. And of course, the conflicts over the Middle Ages, a lot of them involved religion. And I believe in the 16th century, she said there were 8 wars during that period. And some of the statues actually have their heads cut off because of the conflict back and forth and the war over the religious stances that each side would take. So the cathedral showed a lot of different architecture from, of course, over 300 years, how things changed, but so much to learn and appreciate for the history in this little town. And then you just like literally talking about history, you have this incredible temple, this first century Roman temple. She said that Romans had 175 days of worship to their gods. They were very superstitious and took it very seriously. So whenever a plague would occur, they blamed the Christians because they weren't sacrificing to the gods. And so it wasn't until Constantine made Christianity common religion to unify the empire that persecution stopped. So that was our tour of the town square. We had as you know, with Viking, there are included short excursions in every port of call, but then a lot of times you can have a more active one that will do more extended activity. Well, we were part of the active group. However, going up the extended tour, which we would normally do, was canceled that day because there was a jazz festival. So the tour ended here in the city, but Meredith and I followed the little brass medallions that are in the sidewalk, and we did some exploring. Now, a tip that she shared was to download Google Maps on your phone while you have Wi-Fi before you get off the ship. And you can still navigate in a town either by public transportation or walking. And that's what we did. And we walked up to this incredible Roman amphitheater. As you can see, that's the stage where the jazz festival was being held that day. We got a little diverted on our trip and ended up going into this graveyard here, but the tombstones were incredible. The only thing is there wasn't an easy exit out of it. Where we were trying to get was right over that wall, and we ended up exploring this, but I was so glad we did. It was so fascinating to learn about the residents that have lived in this area, and you can just see how the tombstones go all the way down there. But look at that incredible view. We finally were able to get to the top of the mountain, and this was a beautiful area that was originally sacred to the Romans, but it was turned into a fortress in the Middle Ages and then handed over to the Church of Vienne in 1023. So we were able to get up there, get some incredible views. I love taking pictures of the little signs outside historical places, because it does help me remember a lot more than just the impression of when I was there. And I just turned around from there and saw these great views of the Rhône River and from Mount Pepay. So encourage you to do that if you are taking this tour. Now, we do have some scenic sailing. It is different from the Rhine or the Danube, of course, but very scenic and restful. I think this is one of the things that Meredith really loved about this. It's just wide rivers and very open, restful, scenic day of sailing. While we had our scenic sailing, we would get these wonderful port talks that just told us all about the history of the Provence region. And then we had our next day, which was to Tournon, which was the first day into the Ardèche region, to do some scenic cruising. And it was another beautiful day. We had incredible weather here, which was just amazing. This is the Hermitage in Tournon, right as you get off the ship. There are two cities on this day, Tournon and Viviers. Tournon is known for its chestnuts, lots of wine growers here, employs 50,000 workers. The film Total Eclipse was filmed here by Leonardo DiCaprio. This is the Hotel de Ville. I love this door. It's from the 15th century. I love taking photos of old doors while I'm traveling, and that door is right up there on that, right above that staircase. But this is a place where guests can stay if they're not on a river cruise. And one of the remarkable things is the first suspension bridge was built here in France by Marc Séguin. And it was the first time it covered the whole river in the 19th century. So there's a monument there that talks about this great accomplishment. There was a parade being set up here, so we got a chance to see some of the festivities. There's a Celtic castle. I think it's a museum now, but it had been everything from a castle to actually a jail at one point, and a winery, and then a museum. So a fun day here. The Hermitage is an important area. If you love wine, this is a really popular place to do a tour that includes learning about the wine and that they make here. The history of it is that a hermit came from the Crusades back in the 1200s and created this amazing white wine that is said that Charlemagne came here to get wine from these vineyards. Of course, it's very exclusive, small production, very expensive, but it is very popular. I had some friends on the cruise that did the chocolate tasting tour. I think it was a wine and chocolate tasting tour, and really enjoyed it. So said it was the best chocolate they had ever had. So enjoy that. Oldest private university here dates back to 1536, but now it's a very prestigious high school. Be a nice place to go if you lived there. And then we went to the center of town there. You see those sycamore trees again. There was a market going on at that point, and we were able to get some, leather goods, some handmade soaps, etc. My daughter found this cute dress. She actually wanted the red one, but this other guest had purchased the pink. So they swapped dresses and were able to just have a fun picture taken that evening as they wore it to dinner. Sunflowers everywhere in July, and you can understand where the artists got their inspiration. The Tournon steam train was a real favorite for this day. It was a beautiful day. This is a authentic train that has built back in 1896. It's a narrow gauge track. It's only 3 feet wide, and it takes 1,300 pounds of coal to do the 1 hour trip. The man that's shoveling the coal into this furnace did this. Boy, was he strong. And his father and grandfather used to do it. So they have been running this train for generations, and this is a really fun day. You'll enjoy going out, seeing the beautiful scenery. There are aqueducts and beautiful bridges there, waterfalls. And then when you get up to the end point, they will have a opportunity for you to get off the train, and then they take it a few yards further up, turn it around on a little turntable, and then head the train back down. That's something those of you who love trains will really enjoy. And also then you'll be able to come back. And while you're waiting, though, the townspeople will come out and do maybe jams or jellies or some fruit or baked goods. And it's a wonderful time to get some local delicacies, take some cash with you on this day. When you come back, you'll get to see the Locomotive Museum, which is a beautiful area. You'll get to sit in one of the old carriages that they have in there, which was very elegant back in the Victorian times. You'll see a lot of history through the ages of these trains, and that was really enjoyable. And then because we were in the higher elevation, there was lavender in bloom at that time. So it was fun to smell that, see it kind of up close. The best lavender does grow at higher elevations, so you'll learn a little bit more about that as we go along. We came back to the ship and had a wonderful talk in the afternoon. Our guide was so good about just giving a talk about the Provence culture, basically talking about how France was originally divided into 22 regions. They reduced it to 13 because of the bureaucracy, but it was originally made because Napoleon wanted to set natural boundaries so his messengers could ride a horse and get a message to that county within one day. She said in France, they have a very strong regional identity. They may say they're from France, but Burgundy, and they usually say the region first. And of course, very proud of the region that they're from. Marseille is considered the most ancient city of France, and then the Celts invaded the southern area of France. She gave a tip about tipping and said that when you have a meal in France and it has a service fee, that is not going to the server, it is actually going to the proprietor. So if you want to tip the server who has watched over you during your meal, for instance, if it is $12.50, to just round up to 15 and just give that in cash. So she talked about the artists that hail from here. France's native son is Paul Cézanne. Van Gogh and Gauguin were friends, but also had some rivalry going on. Matisse was a student of Van Gogh, and they adopted Picasso as he bought a chateau nearby where he lived and worked. That afternoon, we went to Viviers. Now, depending on which direction you go, you'll either see Viviers in the morning or in the evening, which is what we did because we started from Lyon. It was we were having dinner. It was just starting to get to be sunset there. So I wish we could have seen it a little more during the day. It was a beautiful walk, a very, very beautiful town. It has a little castle high on the hill. We walked up there. Unfortunately, it was starting to get dark. So if you get there, you may want to skip dinner and scoot up to the top of the hill just so you can see the incredible views from up there. But it's a 5th century and former Roman settlement. So a lot of history here. I'd love to have gotten there when the shops were open and I could have explored the city a little bit more. Then we go to Arles, and it's one of the most visited cities in France. There are more than 2,000 years of history here and a lot of concentration of Roman heritage. There's an amphitheater here that's built back in 90 AD and also known for Vincent van Gogh, who spent a year here in 1888 and did 300 canvases just in 1 year. So a lot to learn here, just stunning as you're walking down the street and you see this amphitheater just overtaking you in your sight as you turn the corner. And it's just incredible to look at the history. And there are photos along the walls that tell you, how they lived in this time and the types of activities that they had in the amphitheater. On the right is the hospital where Van Gogh actually cut off his ear, it said, and he recuperated there. There's a great little shop there where you can buy fun souvenirs and postcards as well. One of my favorite stops, I do recommend this so much, and this was recommended to me by one of my clients who did the world cruise and said this was one of her favorite excursions ever. So of course we had to do that. It's called the Carrières de Lumières, and it is a rock quarry that is about, the walls are 80 feet high in some places. It is so impressive. And you walk in this area and you're just, it's not just one big open room. There's little passageways that create unique angles all around. There are a few seats along the wall if you need them, but when we went, and you'll have to see because they change the artists regularly, the artist that we saw was Van Gogh, and then there was a secondary artist afterwards. But what they do is they light up the walls with the artist's most famous works. And so they have it to music. The sound is incredible, how it echoes across the quarry. Somehow they take the painting and separate it out. For instance, petals are falling, or for instance, when we were doing Starry Night, the crescendo of the music as the stars came up to the ceiling was amazing, or the sunflowers blooming from your feet up the walls. It was just incredible. Very wonderful excursion. Nice and cool in there if you're going in the summertime, but I would take a jacket if you're in the spring or fall, because of course there is cooler temperatures there. But highly recommend it. It repeats every 30 minutes. We're able to stay there for a little while and just enjoy. And then it combines with this beautiful town of Les Baux-de-Provence, and it's considered one of the most beautiful villages in France, built back in the 10th century. This was transferred to the Grimaldi family in 1642, and it is just an incredible city. You'll see that castle on the top of the hill. When we got there, the guide said you could go to the castle. I think it was €7 to go all the way to the top. She said there was no shade, and that sealed it for me. So we stayed enjoying the beautiful town of Les Baux. This is a picture my daughter took. All those olive groves down there. I think they said 290,000 trees in this region, and it was just such a stunning day. It was fun to explore the town. It is a little hilly for sure, but there are gift shops, and there's art, there's gardens, there's incredible views, and we did see people with canes walking up and down. There's not a rush, so it's a very slow pace. Would really encourage you to see this lovely city. I bought some of these herbes de Provence, which are little, and they had little grinders on them as a souvenir. They were like €5. It was so fun, and lots of fun things to see. And then we sail into Avignon. I remember the night that we sailed there. It was a sunset like the picture on the right, and there's a Ferris wheel. as you sail into town. And it was just one of those freeze frame memories that you get to really enjoy when you have, the freedom to relax. And we were sailing in, seeing this beautiful view. Avignon is a medieval city that has walls all around it, and inside the city is this little town that holds an amazing Palace of the Popes there. And on your included tour the next day, you will see the Palace of the Popes. This is, it's mostly empty. And so they have pictures that show what it looked like at the time. And you can explore that and then have plenty of time to shop in Avignon. This is the market there. And the townspeople didn't like the concrete walls, so they created a green space there that is basically fed by water, and it just has beautified the city. And I love that. And of course, you can go into this market. I love seeing the markets and seeing the type of local food and fresh fruits and vegetables. And there's plenty of time to shop and enjoy this area. When we were there, there was the July theater festivals. And so there were these performances out in the street to try to encourage you to come to watch their show that evening, and they're handbills so you could learn all about the entertainment that's there. So summertime fun and bright colors, lots of great options and things to do. The shops, like I said, just so many unique things to see. Colorful displays, fun options of things to buy and treats to have and to share. Avignon is great because this is where you can buy the fine lavender. Lavender fine is grown in the higher elevations. So this is where the best quality lavender is. That's Meredith there in front of this shop, and they have a video in there where you can watch how they actually harvest the lavender. It's great to bring home some little sachets of lavender or lavender oil as a souvenir. On the right, you can actually do an excursion where lavender is being grown and harvested, and that's an enjoyable experience. You need to go in June or July for that. Another popular excursion is the Château de Paf, which is the summer house of the Popes, but it's very famous for the wine that's grown there as well. The Camargue region is popular if you love nature. There are a lot of animals you can see there, marshy lands. When we were there in the summer, the guests that did the Camargue region said it really needed to be wetter for the animals to come closer. So I would recommend that. Another tip if you're going in the summer is take 2 bottles of water when you leave the ship. That way you can leave one on the motor coach if it's a motor coach tour like in Les Baux and not get dehydrated. I really want to make sure that you get plenty of water, especially if you're in this area in the summer. Now, if you're in this area in the fall or winter, then in southern France, you have the Mistral winds, which are very strong winds. In fact, I saw a nativity of a little shepherd boy who's literally hanging onto his hat and his cape is blowing. But those winds were wonderful in the summertime. So just be prepared for that if you're traveling in the spring or the fall. When we came back to the ship, they greeted us with a fresh towel and something cool to drink. But then you could do some optional excursions too. Of course, we talked about some of those. This is a popular one. It's called Pont du Gard, and you can see some incredible engineering here. This was built without mortar over 2,000 years ago, and some of these stones weigh up to 6 tons and channel 44 million gallons of water a day over 31 miles. So I hope that gives you a good overview of the Lyon Provence cruise. You can do an extension, whether it is Paris, as I mentioned at the beginning, or Avignon, or Nice at the end. I had a guest on this cruise who had taken 10 Viking cruises. They were doing this one for a second time, and he said one of the reasons was Nice was such a wonderful place to visit, and Viking took amazing care of them, and so they wanted to have that experience again. So that is the summary of our itinerary. If we can help you with it, we're happy to do so. We are the Viking experts, so we know the inside scoop on these itineraries. We often have specials the public doesn't know about. Viking gives us an extra $200 bonus shipboard credit when you spend the time to learn about the itineraries. It's $100 per person. And of course, you'll get your past guests or new guest discounts. We're always looking out for ways to really stack those benefits for you. We also have a team of us that just watch your back, and we have each of us has a different focus of your reservation to make sure we're taking care of all the details. And this reduces the risk for you. It also just helps make sure that you get the most value, and the cruise is something to look forward to. It's not a part-time job for you to have to watch out for your air or your final payments or all those extra things that you may or may not know that you do need to do before you go. We really focus on success being based on great relationships, and we have really tried to earn that with our clients and Viking, so that we're able to give you the best Viking experience. I like to say it's everything you like about Viking, only better, because we're focused on making that happen for you. So if you haven't done a river cruise before, I'm going to do a quick tour of the ships. If you have, and you want to just learn about the itinerary, I hope this was helpful for you. My contact information is on the bottom of the screen, so feel free to reach out. And now we're going to do a quick tour of the long ships. The Viking long ships are not longer than the others. They are basically a tribute to their heritage of the Vikings. So I like to say the easiest way to figure out the room categories is you have A and B veranda here, C and D on the other side. They're exactly the same size, whether it's A and B veranda, that's 205 square feet, or C and D French balcony, which is 135 square feet. E and F standard staterooms are there on the bottom, and they have the high fixed window. We've got the 2 suites. We got 7 veranda suites. So Explorer suites are on the back of the ship. I'll show you some photos of that. And I'll turn my camera off again so you can see these photos a little better. This is guest services. So as you're coming onto the ship, you'll be greeted by some friendly staff here. And then as you turn around, you're going to be able to see the atrium area. You can notice it's light and bright. It's all about feeling like you're sailing in the destination. So no heavy draperies or gilded chandeliers. We want you to feel like you're actually enjoying each aspect of the scenery as you sail. The restaurant has small tables of 4, 6, or 10, and you can combine those if you're in a group. You can change it up every day if you like. Dress code is casual and relaxed. You can leave all those fancy frocks at home. The Viking Lounge is where we have our port talks, of course, where people gather at the end of the day to talk about their trip. And then we also have evening entertainment here. So you'll have the Viking Lounge. And of course, this is where you can do some fun scenic sailing, either here in the aqueduct terrace, where you can either have breakfast, you can even make for lunch, or even like dinner at night. Of course, lots of options on this beautiful ship. The library is fully stocked with wonderful reading options related to the region you're sailing through. On the screen closest to you, there are 2 Viking computers, so you can always leave your laptops at home because Viking has some there for you to connect if you'd like to. The sun deck is a wonderful area. It's got a walking trail, plenty of covered and uncovered areas to enjoy scenic sailing on those beautiful days. There's a putting green as well as an herb garden, and the chefs use that to make those delicious meals. And then the standard stateroom, as I mentioned, the high fixed window. And then we have the French balcony with the sliding glass door that you can lean out but not step out. We've got the veranda, which has the extra chair in the room, and then the seated area outside. It's wonderful to be able to get up in the morning. One of my favorite memories is sailing into port on a very quiet morning, and just the quietness of the water as we glided into port was just a real memory. So that's very fun. And then we have the suites. This is the bathroom in the veranda suite, but all the bathrooms in every category have heated floors, nice large amenities that are color coded, so you never have to wonder what you're putting on your body without your readers. And of course, great views as well as you sail along the river. The veranda suite comes with some extra benefits. Of course, double the living space with the French balcony and the step-out balcony. There's alcohol in the room. You get Air Plus service included, and extra amenities that come along with this, such as early embarkation and extra things, services as well. The Explorer Suites are the best places on the ship, certainly a wonderful place to celebrate. There are two of these with 270-degree wraparound balconies and a living area, even in the bathroom. There are there's a two-way glass switch, so you never have to miss any scenery as you're sailing by. Thank you for joining me. As I like to say, our motto is great vacations matter because great memories matter the most. We want to make sure that you get the most for your Viking cruise dollars and have an experience that really is worth celebrating. So feel free to contact me if we can be of help. We're here to make sure you have the best vacation possible. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining me.